Hello and welcome to Winebot, a simulation that allows small wineries to decide when and for how many hours to rent a mobile bottling truck. Unlike large wineries which bottle their wines in-house, small wineries must rent a mobile bottling truck to complete the bottling process. Many small wineries do not have the resources to monitor bottling data, such as holding and storage costs, the cost of missing demand, and the cost of renting a truck, which has led to inefficient renting patterns and higher costs. Wineries will be able to reduce their costs by better planning their renting schedules to reduce rental, holding, and storage and lost demand costs. Additionally, wineries may not have the resources to properly compare different mobile bottling truck providers and choose the option that best matches their scheduling and cost needs, which increases the business's total costs and can lead to inefficiency and greater lost demand. Now I'll pass it off to Alison Cliff to talk about the market evaluation.
We have targeted a niche market with immense potential for customer acquisition. There are over 7,200 small wineries in the U.S. that produce under 50,000 cases of wine each year, which must rent bottling trucks. Assuming a licensing fee of $5,000, this market is valued at $36 million. Assuming a conversion rate of 20%, the expected market capture is $7.2 million. Now, here's Alexander Barone to tell you how Winebot will solve renting logistic problems for small wineries.
The end purpose of our product is to allow wineries to reduce their costs related to the bottling process. Our product allows wineries to determine how many hours to rent a bottling truck for and over what intervals in order to minimize costs. These costs include those related to renting a mobile bottling truck, such as fixed and hourly rental costs, those related to the winery's in-house operations, like holding and storage costs, as well as the cost of missing demand. For example, high holding and storage costs may prompt wineries to rent more trucks more often, while low holding costs and storage costs may prompt wineries to rent trucks less often due to the high fixed costs, or low fixed costs. Our product also allows small wineries to compare their expected cost among different mobile bottling truck providers and choose the best option via sensitivity analysis. Each bottling truck company charges different fixed and variable renting costs. By inputting these different costs into the model and comparing the projected cost over the simulation run, the winery can choose the provider that reduces total cost. A small winery can choose the best alternative simply by inputting known data, such as their holding cost, when batches of wine are expected to be ready for bottling, alternative companies' fixed costs, variable costs, and their availability. Additionally, by comparing costs associated with different rental times and intervals between rental periods, wineries will be able to choose the optimal rental time, number of rentals within a 3-month bottling season, and intervals between rental periods at minimized cost. Now Caroline Wu will walk you through our simulation model.
The simulation starts at the beginning of the bottling season. The winery has predetermined the duration and the time of truck rentals, as well as a schedule of pickups with their distributors. Meanwhile, wine arrives in batches from barrels. When the truck is available, wines begin processing from setup and cleanup to bottling and are placed in the storage queue until distributors pick up their orders. And now we'll pass it off to Vijay for the demo.
Thanks, Carolyn. So now I'll go through a quick walkthrough of our simulation product. What you see here is the homepage for our product as you open our VBA-based interface. This allows for a variety of variable inputs that are all relevant to both small and potentially large wineries, but this is specifically geared, as said before, to small wineries. As you see here, we have several controls that the customer can use. The first is an automated input populator for just ease of convenience. They're able to input several constant variables via this form. I'll give some examples with our holding cost and also the cost of cleaning. They can fill in as many fields as they desire and then fill in the rental cycles as they have already planned before. So if we input cleaning costs here as well, and then the fixed cost of renting a bottling truck, we'll see that those fields get populated and the customer is more easily able to use this. Similarly, once we run the simulation, this will go through 50 runs of each of the 12 sets of inputs that the customer has put in. And as we do that, we'll see a range of outputs come out. The first is a cost of rent ratio. This linear relationship is a consequence of the inputs that we put previously, but as the customer provides more real-world input and assumptions, this will provide more intricate data. The results tab, which can also be accessed from our homepage via the summary results control, provides several key inputs that the customer is looking for. The first is the average cost for each of the simulation scenarios that they put together, as well as the return cycle, just to keep in mind what the decision criteria here was. They're also able to see the average number of rentals for the actual bottling truck that were required by each set of constraints. And then finally, we also see the raw data for our Monte Carlo simulation, but then also the final histogram that was developed for each of the 12 input scenarios. These will show two scenarios in here for now. The first two plots, we can see that the first plot especially, it gives the customer a lot of insight on exactly what range they can estimate their cost to be for this scenario. And for the second one, we can see that they probably have less of a constant expectation of what their costs can be, since there are several scenarios that ended up having a high probability of occurring. Even further, however, the real power of our simulation comes through the sensitivity analysis that customers are able to conduct based on their assumptions of rental cycles that was inputted at the beginning. As you see in the last tab here, this graph provides a sensitivity for plus or minus 10% on the constant rental time for the bottling truck that the customer initially specified for the minimum cost scenario that came out of our simulation. That is, we took the scenario that was optimal based on our Monte Carlo simulation and then provided an additional level of insight by toggling the constant input that the customer provided to show them how that cost might change if that constant input were to fluctuate as well. And here we see that if the rental time was actually increased even slightly, that would cause a large increase in the cost. However, if the rental time were pushed back even further, that would cause the cost to come back down. However, we see that ultimately the constant cost that the customer put in was the optimal base case scenario for this, so they can confidently go forward knowing that this is how they should conduct their operations in the future. And with that, that concludes our demonstration, and I'll be passing it back to Alison to wrap things up.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. As you can see, Winebot is a powerful tool that small wineries can utilize to optimize their bottling process. From all of us here at Winebot, Sharvani, Alexander, Carolyn, Vijay, and Allison, thank you for listening. Please contact Team Winebot at gmail.com with any further questions.